For a long time, my life existed in a space that didn't have a name. It wasn't failure. It wasn't success. It was a stretch of time where nothing seemed wrong, yet nothing was clearly right. I was doing all the right things, but the results hadn't caught up yet. I was faithful, consistent, disciplined, but unseen. Productive, yet unrewarded. And if I'm honest, that in-between space was harder than struggle. At least struggle gives you a reason. Waiting just gives you silence. That season taught me a lesson most people never learn. Waiting is not passive, it is strategic ground. What determines whether it becomes a losing season or a winning one is not time, talent, or luck. It's foresight. This is how foresight, paired with intentional strategy, turned what looked like delay into leverage, and how I learned to win before the win arrived. The myth of nothing is happening. In waiting seasons, the most dangerous belief is the quiet one. Nothing is happening. No applause, no promotion, no visible acceleration. And because nothing is obvious, we assume nothing is occurring. But that assumption is false and costly. Growth doesn't announce itself while it's happening. Foundations are laid underground. Muscles strengthen under resistance, not display. Strategy is often invisible until it compounds. The truth is, something is always happening. The real question is what? Are you drifting or are you designing? The moment I stopped resisting the season, I used to fight my waiting season. I tried to escape it, shorten it, bypass it. I prayed for it to end instead of asking what it was meant to produce. But one moment changed everything. I stopped asking, why is this taking so long? And started asking, what is this season training me to handle? That question shifted my posture. I stopped seeing waiting as an obstacle and started seeing it as an incubator. Suddenly, time felt useful again. Foresight doesn't remove discomfort, but it gives discomfort meaning. Foresight, thinking beyond the immediate moment. Foresight is not optimism. It's not manifestation. It's not pretending everything will magically work out. Foresight is disciplined imagination backed by preparation. It is the ability to look at your current position and say, if momentum suddenly increased, would I be ready? If responsibility expanded, could I sustain it? If opportunity knocked tomorrow, would I have the capacity to answer? That kind of thinking changed my behavior immediately. I stopped preparing for where I was and started preparing for where I was going. And that is the defining difference between people who survive opportunity and people who squander it. From emotional living to strategic living. Waiting seasons expose emotion. Doubt creeps in quietly. Comparison becomes louder. Every delay feels personal. I noticed that my actions were often driven by how I felt that day. When I felt inspired, I worked intensely. When I felt tired, I disengaged. When I felt anxious, I distracted myself. That pattern produced inconsistency, and inconsistency kills momentum. Strategy required a shift. Feelings could be acknowledged, but they could no longer be in charge. Instead of asking, what do I feel like doing today? I asked, what does the version of me I'm becoming need me to do consistently? That single question turned discipline into devotion. I wasn't forcing myself anymore. I was aligning myself, conducting a ruthless personal audit. One of the most strategic things I did in my waiting season was pause and assess, honestly. Not spiritually bypassing, not sugarcoating, just truth. I evaluated my skills, my habits, my mindset, my gaps. I asked myself uncomfortable questions. What am I avoiding improving? What weaknesses am I hoping won't matter later? Where am I overconfident and underprepared? Foresight demands honesty. Because the future doesn't adjust to your blind spots, it exposes them. So I worked where I was weakest, not where I was already strong. I reinforced my foundation instead of polishing my surface, preparing for demand before it arrives. One of the biggest mistakes people make is waiting for demand before they prepare. That's backwards. I learned to prepare as if the demand was inevitable. That meant studying when no one asked for my opinion, practicing skills no one was paying me for, refining processes before they were required. I treated obscurity as a classroom. Waiting became my rehearsal space, because when opportunity finally arrives, there is rarely time to prepare. You are either ready or exposed. The power of low visibility. Waiting seasons often come with low visibility, And at first, that feels like a disadvantage. But foresight revealed it as a gift. Low visibility meant freedom to fail privately, space to experiment without judgment, time to build without pressure. I could make mistakes quietly, learn without embarrassment, grow without comparison. Winning seasons don't allow for that luxury. Everything is amplified. That's why the preparation must happen before the spotlight turns on. Building systems that outlast motivation. Motivation fades, strategy remains. I stopped relying on inspiration and started building systems. Structured routines, non-negotiable habits, clear boundaries, repeatable processes. Systems protected me from burnout and inconsistency. They carried me on days when passion was low. I learned this truth. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. By the time momentum arrived, I wasn't scrambling to organize my life. The infrastructure already existed. Guarding my vision in silence. Another strategic shift was learning when to stay quiet. Not everyone needs access to your plans. Not every vision needs commentary. Some things grow better in silence. In my waiting season, I stopped over-explaining. I stopped seeking premature validation. I protected what I was building until it was strong enough to stand on its own. Foresight taught me that exposure too early can kill momentum. Strategy taught me patience, redefining what winning actually means. For a long time, I thought winning meant arrival. Titles, platforms, results. But my waiting season redefined winning entirely. Winning became consistency without applause, integrity without oversight, growth without recognition. I stopped measuring progress by outcomes alone and started measuring it by alignment. Was I becoming more focused, more disciplined, more grounded? If yes, then I was winning, even before the results showed up. When the season finally shifted, when the shift came, it didn't feel dramatic. It felt familiar. Opportunities increased, pressure rose, expectations expanded. But I wasn't overwhelmed because the waiting season had already stretched me. What looked sudden to others felt overdue to me. That's the mark of foresight at work. When success doesn't shock you because you've already lived into it privately. The real transformation. The greatest reward of my waiting season wasn't the external win. It was the internal readiness. I gained emotional resilience, strategic patience. So here is your call to action. Stop asking when the season will change. Start asking how you will change within it. Audit yourself, build your systems, develop foresight, move with strategy, because when your winning season arrives, and it will, you won't be scrambling to catch up. You'll already be there.